Thank you so much for inviting me back. I'm really excited to connect with this audience again. And like Jay said, honestly, this organization was foundational to helping me really be supported and launched by a health coaching company as well as the Agenda Period. So many people showed up, gave advice, supported on the various Kickstarter and crowdfunding projects that we've done. So it's just really fantastic to be able to connect and give an update. I'm going to start sharing my screen and just kind of go through what we've been up to, what we are up to, and then have some time for just questions and seeing what other thoughts can come forward. I know this group is like always fantastic for brainstorming. So can everybody see my screen?
Sure can.
Awesome. So I am Alex Goldfriggs, the CEO and founder of The Agenda Period. And if you haven't heard about us before, I just wanted to give you a little brief introduction to what we are all about. We're really about helping folks understand their body, their cycle, and their life, and really connecting all of the dots to those pieces for ultimate success in their lives and business. So where this idea started from was in 2018. I began a health coaching company and I started as a solo entrepreneur. And as many of you know on this call, whether you're catching us live on Facebook or you're in this group, understand how hard entrepreneurship is in a way that people who've never started a business don't understand. And so there were definitely challenges, highs and lows when I was starting that company. And I wasn't really sure how to run a business. I had a business degree. I had been working for organizations and understood those kind of structures, but it was really different to become a solo founder. So there was a lot of confusion and sometimes even stress when I was beginning that process. So a mentor of mine actually recommended that I started tracking my sales conversions. And when I did that, when I started to track my sales conversions, I found a really interesting data point. I actually found that I had higher sales conversions when I was in the ovulation phase of my menstrual cycle. And this was mind blowing to me that I could actually make more money in my company and was making more money in my company depending on when I had my sales conversations. As a health coach, I learned about cycle syncing. So I learned about adapting what I eat and how I exercise depending on where I was at in the cycle. But I had never learned about how these theories could apply to my business, how my energy and my mood was really affecting my physiology. And so when I stumbled onto that first data point, I got super excited about what this could mean for orienting and organizing the tasks in my business. And I knew I needed to tell other people about it. So when we dug in, we really started to see that the modern workplace was designed for men. It was designed around the 24-hour circadian rhythm, which it really maps with men's hormonal processes, testosterone. And women have another rhythm that's at play here, which is the infradian rhythm, which means longer than a 24-hour cycle. So this is 28 to 35 days. This impacts mood, energies, and our physiology. And when this isn't taken seriously, when period pain and the menstrual cycle aren't taken seriously, the US economy loses an average of $65 billion because their workers are not being supported. This comes in a loss of productivity. So that is a huge problem that we don't even know is going on and that we're definitely not addressing right now. So the solution truly lies in our physiology. So what we've done is we've created a cycle tracker for women and menstruators. So we break this down into a couple of components. First of all, we have to teach about, or our users need to learn about the cycle. Once I started going down this rabbit hole, I was like, this is so amazing. I must be super late to the party. I'm probably the last person to know about this. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Turns out I was one of the first people to the party. So many of the women that I meet with that I know had no idea about the 4 phases and how this energy affects us because we're not really allowed to talk about it. There are a lot of tired tropes when it comes to the menstrual cycle. I remember growing up when boys in my class would say like, oh my God, why are you being such you know what? Like, are you on your period? When we have any kind of real emotion or demonstrate anger. And because of the stigmatization, we're unable to really learn how to utilize and harness and work with our own bodies. So that's really step 1 for our customers. Step 2, we show them how to track and schedule. So what this looks like in the app is actually thinking about those to-dos. We've created a baseline framework for when they may want to start to plan different aspects, and then actually planning and mapping that out, actually planning for when are these components going to feel the easiest. And it's really just an updated way to think about time blocking. Time blocking is super popular, but we've never showed how to do it with women and their hormones. So that's what we're doing here, showing them how to track and connect those dots for when they want to focus on what in their life and business. And then lastly, really is optimizing. Over several schedules, they start to learn about themselves even more. So the feature we're really excited about is how this connects with their Google Calendar or their iCalendar, and these become events that they see overlaid with all of the rest of appointments and their tasks in their life. Because this is not just a box. We're not just, oh, I'm on my period for 5 days and that's over. No, this is something that we're constantly in this energy flow. So really showing them how to optimize and map this to all of the parts and pieces of their life. So really excited about how this component alone is really expanding the learning that our users are having. So in terms of a customer acquisition strategy, what we're looking at right now, we've started with health coaches. And this is because I'm a coach, my co-founder is a coach, and they tend to have some of the cycle knowledge already. So we're really focusing in on this market for customers who, and as health coaches, they're small business owners, so they've got control over their own schedule. So we're using this segment first to collect the data, and where the business model right now looks like a B2C app subscription. Then we'll be moving on to small business owners in general. There are 15 million women in the United States who are small business owners. So we're going to use this to refine the framework over multiple industries and expand our offerings. It'll be, again, a B2C offering, but we're going to be able to increase and expand a product marketplace, have an opportunity for individualized coaching, and as well as really kind of breaking out and expanding upon the content library that we've already got for our users. And then last, we're going to extrapolate out to women in the workforce, selling in bulk through company wellness packages and really being a driving force to update corporate America, because women, again, make up 47% of the workforce, and we need to be included in the way that the systems and structures are set up. So this would look like B2B wellness contracts where employers could buy this for their employees and really expand upon the offerings and have flexibility in the scheduling that makes sense for all bodies. In terms of our competitive analysis, there are a lot of folks in the period tracking space. It's been around for about a decade now. But interestingly, they're not doing this because on our competitors, the number 2 who we consider our major competitors, Clue and Flow, there was one woman on the founding team between those two teams that started out. So they're not understanding the problem in the same way. They understood how to make a great algorithm and start to really dip into this space, but they don't have, like, baked into their company culture is not the same level of understanding, which is likely why they've never stumbled into this connection. So really you can see we're one of the only ones that's planning with the phases, the only one to do the full Google integration right now. We'll be building out that symptom tracker and then really the personalized coaching. So taking it a next level, rather than being a prescriptive app, is really going to be individual and driven by the user themselves. So to date, we start off by raising a Kickstarter in 2019 to launch the first product, which was the planner, which many of you have seen, but here it is. This is the OG Agenda Period product. So a beautiful planner to help people use this information. We created this and sold over 300 copies of the initial MVP, which was that planner. In 2020, we raised $125,000 from private investors, as well as going through the EdTech Accelerator. We ran a second successful crowdfunding campaign for the app pre-sales. And now we have launched the MVP of the app. It is a little bit in beta test. It's available right now on the Apple and iOS store, but we've been doing a lot of feedback. But with a very limited launch, just kind of more word of mouth, we've had 400 downloads in the first couple of weeks. So that's super exciting. We're getting tons of feedback from folks, and we're starting to see not just how we can make this one notch better than the products that exist, but what can we reimagine to completely disrupt the space. And that is super exciting. So our financial projections, again, these really map to our customer segments. So this is the kind of the path we're on over the next 5 years, which is very exciting. Yes. And then where we need help right now, we are raising a seed round. So if you know anything about technology. There's a lot that goes into it in terms of growth, being able to compete with these gigantic organizations who could smush us like grapes. So that is why we are raising a pre-seed round. The use of funds will be to continue to build out our team. A ton will go into app development, including additional features and the improvement of UI and UX, and then marketing. Because of the stigma and shame that exists in this space, we really want to run a coordinated national campaign to help release some of the stigma and shame in this area. And we need a team to kind of help us break through some of that noise. But Good Morning America, watch out. Going to show up in all of those places. So that's kind of what the path looks like in terms of those early customer acquisitions and what we'll be using this seed round for. So I would love to just kind of put a pin here and take time for any questions, because you guys always have a great way of helping me think through what I am missing.
I'll start. I am so freaking excited for you. Those babies, the start, I feel like we've really just gotten to watch the full transformation into what you've become. And it's been so phenomenal. You are inspiring. And when you said GMA, I was actually thinking GMA. I'm like, we're manifesting this. It's going to happen. So could you expand on maybe those that are no longer menstruating, how they could use your product? That is my biggest question. I know you have an answer for it, but I'd like for you to share with the group.
Yeah, I love that question. So a friend of mine who runs a seed cycling company, I just heard her say this. She's like, for people who are no longer menstruating or who have free range cycles. So it may, we may have heard the word irregular in the past, which can feel kind of tough. So I loved that. I'm like, I grew up on a farm. I like free range anything. I think I'm going to borrow that. So if anyone listening has a free range cycle or is no longer cycling, something that we map out is the moon cycle. So here's what it looks like in the book, but this will be extrapolated on in the app. Right now it's living in the content section, showing people how to use that. But really the menstrual cycle maps to the moon cycle. So that would look like taking the new moon, or when there's no moon showing in the sky, as the menstrual time. As the moon is getting bigger, that would be like the follicular phase. Around ovulation would be full moon. That makes sense, right? Like an egg, think about like an egg, and then boom, like the moon is full in the sky. And then the waning moon, as the moon is coming back down, would be like the luteal phase. So it's a great way to tap into this energy, even if you have a free range cycle right now, or you are no longer menstruating, like post-menopause. It was so interesting. When I first started this, I was on a plane and I was talking to this 80-year-old woman about this. And she's like, oh, I could tell you still to this day exactly when I would have my period if I still had one, like, because her hormones are still in flow and flux, even at much lower levels. So I was like, this is really, really cool. So having something to kind of pinpoint and anchor into is really supportive for folks if they're not having the bleed part of their cycle anymore. Great question, Erin. It's so nice to see you too.
Hey, Alex, it's Matt. Great seeing you. So excited for not only where you've been, where you're going, and so love the update. One of the things I was wondering maybe two things, and if neither are interesting to you, feel free to wave them off. But I remember lots of explicit conversations early that we had about no app, right? And so there was a pivot there. I'm just kind of curious on what that insight was. So not to challenge you, like, yeah, now you're doing, but really, like, what was the insight to go that direction? And then the other is, because I love the idea here, and don't want to get this in the way of your key objectives, but also wondering about advice and tips on kind of allyship, like how might a male partner be a little bit more informed or helpful? Might be like a category within some of the information that you're providing to customers.
I have so many thoughts on all of that. So thank you for those questions, Matt. It's nice to see you. Shameless plug. I would still love to be on the Iowa Idea podcast if you're still, looking for folks. So I'll just
absolutely
sprinkle that in there.
I'll get a calendar out to you. Mark it out. I want you at the top of your cycle game when you're on. Ovulation, baby.
All right. So first of all, I think there was some fear of, and this is, I think, happens a lot with founders who they may see the vision and like understanding the scope. So like, I'm not a technical co-founder. So there was a lot of just personal hesitancy there around like, how would I even go about getting this started? Obviously, there are great people to work with. You don't have to do all of the pieces, right, in your business, but I think that can be challenging to us as founders who are starting out. And so I would just encourage, if that resonates with anyone, like tap into this network, ask like, hey, I want to do X, but I don't know how to get it done. There's a lot of wisdom here. So that, I think, I had to like work through my system. Second, before, pre-COVID, we went to, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 events and workshops, and everyone's like, this is so great. Like, when can I download the app? And I was like, there's not going to be an app. But then like when the universe does something, like so many, like after person number 1,000 is like, I would download this right now. I'm like, I'll make an app. So that's part of it. Then we did a ton of customer discovery. So really learned into the principles of Agile. And something that was interesting that came out when we did that process is understanding in a deep way, because this was before I had children, but how much there's like so much unpaid labor and administration of a household. So women are over and over and over again administering and running so many different calendars, so many different appointments, keeping track of their personal stuff, their business stuff, their partner stuff, their kids stuff. And so all like 98% of the people I interviewed said like, I have to have an electronic component to my calendar, my schedule, so that I can map everything in one place. And 96% of those interviewed were on Google Calendar. And so I was like, man, we have to have something so that if we really want this to become like a new way to think about and orient your calendar and orient your life, they have to be able to see it mapped with everything they're already doing. Otherwise, it's pretty useless. And none of the apps are doing that. None of them are showing like, what does this mean for how you parent, how you work with your partner, how you show up? Because that was something we heard over and over again. Like, I don't know why momming is so easy sometimes, and then like I hate it some other times. And when we started showing them the connections, like, oh, I understand, like there's some cyclical stuff going on here, but if I can understand myself better, I can give myself grace. I can like rope my kids into the conversation. I can rope my partner into the conversation. And so we really just started to understand for this to be what it can be, it has to be most accessible to the end user. And that means really combining it with all of the things they're already doing, rather than it being one more additional thing to carry around. And on that note, after I went to 15 events, I realized how heavy a physical product is. And my arm was broken after like carrying 50 pounds of agenda periods around. And I was like, you know what sounds great? Something that I could download and have in my pocket instead of lugging around. Let's do that instead. So all of those kind of factors really led to the pivot, but it was definitely a process to accept and to arrive here.
Thanks. And I don't know if by chance if you caught last week's refill conversation, but Erica Cole from No Limits was on, and she's made an interesting pivot in the past year too, right? From the prosthetic device itself to actually the clothing. But to your point, it was doing more customer interviews, getting some more insights. And so it doesn't change the core of the idea or the objective, but I really appreciate you sharing that. I also appreciate you being vulnerable with this, telling it. And I'm also just one of the other things that I'm thinking might kind of go in an idea backlog is one of the things that I'm hearing too is, I know this is focused on women, right? But when you're talking about almost better knowledge of oneself, creating a more and better thing, there might be extensions on to me on how we present our more authentic selves to just be more comfortable and more powerful. I think could be an interesting offshoot. Again, backlog, not to take you off your path, and yeah, we'll get you on the podcast. Absolutely, thank you. And again, it's always a pleasure to see you. So thanks so much, and congrats on the good work so far.
Thank you. I think that's really true, because we're starting to challenge this idea of how we work, it's not to make men feel bad, it's not to make anyone feel bad, but it's saying like there's enough space for all of us to be able to show up authentically and redefine what the container looks like, and make something more equitable for everyone. And when women get to lean into that, that also makes more space for men and for anyone in the system. Because I think what we've seen a lot over the last year is like, what we were doing doesn't work. It's really kind of suffocating to everyone. And things can continue in the world without upholding and propping up that system. So this is like can be a period of reimagination and creativity that we can all lean into. I wanted to touch really quick on your idea of allyship, because one of the ideas for the future would be you'd be able to share this information with the people you trust in your circle, whether that looks like a partner, whether that means sending this calendar to a friend. And I would love to see some type of integration where like I can put my self-care list, and Matt, you're a good friend, and we work together and say, oh, she could really use some chocolate, so I'm going to send her through the app. Like I can buy something, or she could use some wine today, I'm going to send that. Or she could use some like meditation time, so I can help be that ally and say like, hey, like I got this. Like my partner could say, you know what, like I got this, why don't you go like take some time to meditate. But really being able to partner with the user in that way is something we're excited to build out in the future.
I absolutely love that, because there's more and more work that's coming out and research on, for lack of better terms, knowledge workers, right? Where a lot of the 40-hour work week is still tied to industrial revolution, people working on a factory line that being there is the only way you're productive, right? But I mean, now it's like, when do we better handle the ebbs and flows of our own lives so that we can bring the best of us when it's needed, but also recharge. So I love some of those ideas to, just as we're kind of leaving the industrial workplace behind. And that's not to diminish people that have industrial jobs, right? And there are certain jobs, but in particular contexts, we do have an opportunity to bring our best selves. And I think the Agenda Period is a great way to demonstrate that.
Thank you.
I just kind of have a general question, and it's good to see you, Alex. I love having you back here at 1 Million Cups. I remember when this idea was just a little baby itself, and you talked to me about it as we were standing by the little coffee area at Merge. So I remember this very vividly. But my question is, you were an entrepreneur before, but this is kind of a different experience building a company from the ground up, especially a technology company now. So I'm kind of wondering, did you have any aha moments or words of wisdom for people who might be interested in taking that journey into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is totally different. It is 1000% different than running a health coaching company where I work on like individual client contracts. It's very, very different. I think I cannot undersell the amount of support that's needed when you're going through this. And so finding whatever community, for me, it was 1 Million Cups I see, really genuinely. And then extrapolating out through the U conferences in Cedar Rapids and that network of women. And so it is freaking scary. It took even longer to bring this idea forward because I thought people would just think it was insane. And there are lots of people who think it's insane. And they look at me like, is there any proof that this is actually happening? Like, how many people have told me that this company was too niche, so it would never take off? Because I'm like, do you know how many people have periods? Like half the planet, but people are like, oh, this is a very niche idea. So like all that kind of feedback was some of the reasons that I was scared to get started. I thought people would look at me like I had 5 heads or something. So having a group where you can shoot the ideas, having Liz's, having Jay's, having Aaron's, like people in your corner that you can talk through things with, wrestle with these concepts, and get the support, and then also get pointed to resources that I didn't have because I had the idea, I have a lot of passion and a lot of energy, but I don't have the whole recipe. I needed to have other people on my team. And so having a group that can point you to like, okay, talk to this person. This could be a good mentorship. Jay's always like hitting me with ideas. He was like, oh, you should go to this thing, do this, go over here. Katie was super supportive. She still sends me emails about checking out like the resources that are going on in the community. And so being able to have that group, like it takes a village to raise a business. I know we say that all the time about babies, but it also takes a village to raise a business. So that would be my advice to anyone listening, is like, find your people, find the people who can help you when you feel like giving up on your idea, and don't be afraid to pivot when you get the right information. So if I would have like had all this research saying like, Alex, you really need to like strap up and like get ready and make an app, versus I could have just said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to really get stuck to this delivery method. That would have halted my progress. So you have to be able to take in that information and then change course if needed.
Nice. Any other questions?
Can you talk about your experience raising funds? You said, you did a Kickstarter, you've raised $125,000, which congratulations, that's a big deal. Can you kind of talk about that experience and how that happened?
Yeah, you have to have a lot of persistence to raise money. Crowdfunding was a really great way for us to do a couple of things, and it's something I think is a really great first start rather than going over larger amounts of capital, because it helps you flesh out your idea, helps you have a lot of conversations about and get really clear about what you're offering, really crafting that story. So launching the first Kickstarter, I had to talk about periods to like 1,000 strangers. So that was really, really good for me to have to go through that process. But I think any time you're trying to raise funds to get your idea started, it helps you with your own conviction and helps you get really clear about your messaging and what and why you're building it. The Midwest is pretty conservative in terms of raising capital and wanting a lot of things to be proven out compared to some of the consultants we worked with. When I told them we're going to raise like $500,000 for our pre-seed round, they're like, no one's going to take you seriously. You need to raise like $1 million. I'm like, $1 million, what? So it really, like, the environment that you're trying to raise money in has a lot to do with it. And while it is important, like cash is lifeblood of any company. We thought many times that, we were going to have to fold if we didn't already raise our seed round, and we haven't raised our seed round, and we're still plugging along. So it's also not the end of the story. You can decide to keep going, even if it doesn't come together the way that you think that it does. So those are some of my scattered thoughts about fundraising, and really kind of in the middle of it right now. I think we are going to launch this campaign on WeFunder. So it's essentially like crowdfunding, but to an angel network. And then other people can get in on the round as well. So it really is a step towards democratizing wealth accumulation and really allowing average people like my friends and family. Everyone's like, can you just like raise 500,000 from your friends and family round? I was like, what? No, I cannot do that. I don't know what kind of friends and family you have. You can lend them to me if they want to help me raise my round, but like that's something that's been tossed out, which often keeps folks with really great ideas from getting into bigger spaces and building big businesses, because there's such the separation of who has access to capital. So that's something that we're working to re-examine, and one of the reasons, again, we're looking at WeFunder. But all of this is to say, get help. Again, ask a lot of questions, because all of the words, it's a whole nother language. It's really like tech, like figuring out term sheets and figuring out capitalization tables and deal flow, and yeah, it's a lot. So definitely ask for help. And I am not the expert there yet, so I hope to someday provide some clarity and be able to support other small business owners who have a challenge in this space, so that we can really have the great ideas come forward. That's my next career, Liz. VC, angel investor, that's like a decade down the line. So we can wait for that. Well, I'll come back and watch this recording and then like have that as my inspiration like 10 years from now.
I've never heard of WeFunder, but that looks really cool. So thanks for sharing that.
It is super duper cool, and how like they handle all the legal stuff. So like anyone who would be in that round would be wrapped up into one line on the cap table, which will be great for the next time I have to raise money.
I want to like invest in everything now.
It's so cool. It's so cool, right? Yeah, it's really awesome. It's so awesome.
Hey, Alex, Steve Baker here. Hi, congratulations on everything. I remember way back at EntreFest when you just started your coaching career. So coaching business. So congratulations to you. Can you give a little higher overview of WeFunder? I've never heard of it. You've got me really interested. And you started hitting into it, but I want to see if you can tell me a little bit more about WeFunder, how you're using it and such.
Yeah, so I just had a call with someone on their team this week just to kind of understand the process. But they were actually a YC startup, which is cool, and it was made by founders. So their whole team had tried other businesses, which is really great. So they understand founders, and they're helping folks raise money in a really interesting, unique way. They were the first one in this space. Like Republic has come up. There are a couple others, but it's essentially like running a Kickstarter campaign, but for larger check sizes. And once you hit their minimum, which is $50,000, they send you out to their entire network. So they start doing marketing for you. And their network they have 900,000 people who have invested in companies on their platform. So how they set it up is the minimum check size normally is $100. So like anyone could theoretically put in and they start buying fractional pieces of equity into your company. There's one person who becomes the lead investor in that round. So that would be someone who probably wrote between a $25,000 and $50,000 check. But then you can raise, up to 1.5 or $1.7 million without going into certain things through the FCC, because once you get into bigger rounds, there are different questions there. But yeah, then everything gets wrapped up. So I think we'll either raise on a convertible or a safe note. And they just handle everything for you. And then there's a flat fee for processing that. And it will likely be cheaper than having, a separate legal team do the kind of those documents, because there's a lot of money that goes into preparing documents, making sure your cap table's right, getting all the signatures from everyone. And then they also handle the distributions. So once you go, if you raise your next round and there's dividends or people get their money back, they handle all of that on their side, which is really nice as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It would be great to catch up, Steve. I'd love to hear what you're working on now. I know you're always cooking up something.
It's always working, so.
Exactly.
So it's been roughly a year since your last presentation. What would you say is probably the biggest thing you've learned over the last year?
So many lessons. So much has gone into this year. I would say as the founder, I get a ton of advice. I get a ton of thoughts from people in the space, in the community. There's a ton of feedback that always comes with people looking at your idea, and that's fantastic. But ultimately, I have to decide what's the right decision. And that can be kind of hard when you're getting so many different opinions. So for example, our pitch deck, it's gone over 1,000 iterations. And finally, I just have to be like, okay, this is the story I'm telling, and I'm not making any more edits right now. There will be more edits in the future, but I'm not going to put it because someone was like, oh, I hate that you have this. And then the next person will be like, what? Then I'll move it. And they're like, why don't you have that in your pitch deck? I'm like, really? And it's because everyone has their own way, their own set of questions. And so it's really about how do you take in all of the information and then ultimately make your own decision on where you're going to land, because the truth is there is not a right or wrong way to do any of this. And there can be best practices, there can be maybe industry standards or things that are accepted as this is probably would be the right way to do it, but there's not actually a right answer for any of this. So for my type A personality brain, that's really hard sometimes. I have to find the right way to say this story on a pitch deck, and they're like, there's not actually one right way to do any of it. So just really have to be able to take in all of the information and then trust and live into that decision, and then make adjustments if and when you need to.
Very good.
Yeah, that can be hard.
Nice. Any other questions?
Yeah, any pushback, I used to get some really intense questions on these things. I'm happy to answer anything, go down any rabbit holes if anyone wants to.
I guess I don't know where to start with it. But I guess I have one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of difficult to get into, but so with COVID, it's hitting women a lot harder in long hauler, like having issues down the line. Have you looked at anything for for women with like cognitive issues, memory issues, things where not they're not going to remember to, like write down in their calendar, using an app maybe too overwhelming, too stressful. I guess you could kind of expand it to, anybody with like cognitive issues, things like that. But looking at some of the health data that's coming out, like post COVID is going to hit women a lot harder than what they're admitting. And so it's causing a lot of health issues for women too. So, cycles aren't nearly what they have been. Memory, cognitive issues, just a bunch of other health issues. Have you looked at, people with, it's almost like people with disabilities, like using like a product like that down the line?
Thank you so much for that question. That was really like a really thoughtful observation and question to bring up. So in the future, we would definitely like this to be as user-friendly as possible, which may look like some push notifications or some additional support. And another way that we're thinking about this is what is a way to offer one-on-one support. Having a coaching background, I can really see the power of having someone that can kind of check in or is understanding those components or can even help do some of those reminders. And so that may look like a part of the solution in the future, Gabe, is actually connecting to a coach or having someone like have a point person that they could check in with through the app. So they do, it'd be like the coach would have the access on the back end. And so they could see what you're logging or not logging and help make some adjustments from your data. Because in general, we're not studying the cycle data. There's not been a really good, robust long-term study on these impacts. I actually just signed up for a study. I took my first COVID vaccine and logged about my period because we're not testing how these things can connect and how they impact women's hormones in particular. And so while we haven't necessarily flushed out a complete solution in the future, we really want this to be accessible to anyone with a menstrual cycle who needs this help and support. So we will definitely think through additional strategies in the future and making sure that those resources can be accessed. So thanks for putting that top of mind for me.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? I'm not hearing any. I'll do our traditional final question. You knew it was coming. What can we as a community do to help you?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So like I mentioned, the MVP is out now. So passing the link to anyone who could use it. We're having a 3-month free trial right now. I'm not sure how long we're going to be having that go on for, but this would be a great time to pass it to any friends, anyone who you think could use it. If you feel like shouting us out on your social media, that would be fantastic as a way to help us spread the word and get some of those additional early users. And then keep an eye out for a WeFunder campaign if you would like to support, or any angels or any folks who I should reach out to or connect with in the Iowa City community, because I really want to keep building this in Iowa, even though I'm not physically in Iowa right now, really wanting to keep building cool things in the Midwest. We are well known for our brilliance in tech or in ag tech, but there's even more, beyond that story, and want to continue to build cool things in the Midwest, because we don't need to have everything get scooped out and go to the coast. So those are kind of my asks, like any introductions that you think might be helpful as we're really raising this next more serious round of seed funding and then sharing the app out with people.
Very cool. And your social media, is it all the Agenda Period?
The Agenda Period. Nice. Everywhere, except for our Twitter just got taken over by a fake Elon Musk account. So maybe don't follow me there right now. I was like, like, what happened? I can't even like report it to like, they're like, you are spam. You cannot even, so I don't know how to recapture my account. So I guess that's the other ask. You know how to help me get my Twitter back? Let me know. But beyond that, the agenda period, my name's there on this recording. So you can find me on Facebook. Alex@theagendaperiod.com is my email. So any questions, be happy to connect offline with folks. So thank you, and thank you. Yay, I was at eat.
Thank you so much for joining us again. And it's, you know, when we're back in person again, definitely would love you to make the trip back up here and see you in person.
1000%. It's going to happen.